Today's
No.
Hey, how's it
spotlight,
going,
we've
guys?
got shoe designer Luc Houle joining us. Luc is the creator of Johnny Shoes, the shoe that grows into a tree. Welcome, Luc. How are you?
Thank you, thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
Very
Hey,
good, very good.
Luke. Thank
All right,
you.
so before we get into this amazing idea you have, can you tell us just a little bit more about you, where you come from, and how you got into shoe design? And then I want to know one thing that people can't Google about.
Okay, cool. Absolutely. So Rob and I are actually from the same place. We're both from Sudbury, and I grew up in a sleepy town called the Valley. It was an amazing place to grow up. I absolutely love it, and I didn't realize how much I missed it until I went up there after about 2 years because the pandemic was preventing us from traveling. And I totally appreciated just the quiet, the calm, and then getting to see all my friends again for the first time in a couple of years, right?
Aw.
Because now
Yeah.
I live in Toronto. It's been about 12 years, and that's actually where I learned how to design footwear. Was out here
Nice.
because
Cool.
they don't teach that in Sudbury, unfortunately.
I'm not surprised. Very small town, right? Robbie talks about it
Oh,
all the time, how small his town is.
yeah.
It's a great spot though. I absolutely loved it. I made amazing connections, and it really set me up for success for what I'm doing now. Because I still remember even like the local McDonald's where I had my first job. They were like, "Hey, service with a smile." Everything had those small
Nice.
town values. It was phenomenal.
Wow. All right, and one thing that we can't Google about you.
Okay, one thing that you can't Google about me, and it's actually interesting because earlier we were talking about my name and
Yeah.
how when you look at it, it's a
No.
little strange. You might have trouble, figuring out how to pronounce it. So it's French, but it's actually just Luc Houle. Now, the one thing that you probably can't Google about me is when I was younger, I used to do telephone surveys for a company called Cape Connect.
Mm.
And I would call people and I'd be like, hey, my name is Luc Houle. I'm calling from March Entertainment. And I got hung up on so much because people thought I was prank calling with the name Lou
Luke.
Cool.
I could see that. I would be like, this is a scam.
When you said it earlier in pre-show, I thought you had said Luke Cool. I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I like that. But no, yeah.
Yeah. The Lou L-O-O cool, people just didn't believe that. And I was
Yeah.
like, but that's not what I said.
But it's true.
Okay, so let's talk about these Johnny shoes, the world's first fully biodegradable shoe that grows into a tree once planted underground. Absolutely amazing. So, how does it work exactly?
So the idea came to me after working in the fashion industry for about 7 years. And I used to do sales. And in sales, we were killing it. I was crushing like 100,000 pairs a year. We're going out everywhere, and we were stoked, right? But eventually, I got into the development side of things, and that's when I started realizing that the majority of shoes are actually made of plastic, and they're hidden in something called the midsole, which is the part right above the outsole where it contacts the ground. And the problem with plastic is that it biodegrades in 1,000 years, which is insane. That's way too long, and it's actually really harmful for the planet. So once I realized that, I was like, yo, I got to work towards changing this. And with a lot of research, took about 3 years to get this all done. But I'm really proud to say that we developed a compound that feels just like your average sneaker, super comfortable, but it biodegrades in 3 years instead of your typical 1,000.
Wow.
Nice.
And then,
Wow.
once that I'd come to that conclusion, I'm like, people are going to think it's going to biodegrade on your feet. That's not
Yeah,
good.
I'm gonna be honest. I am gonna be absolutely honest with you. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, how long are these shoes gonna last?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And the thing is, they don't biodegrade on your feet. Don't worry, it's not going to happen. They need to be underground with a mixture of moisture and just the great outdoors to get the compound going.
Oh.
And once that, I realized I had to get that message out there. I'm like, well, then if you got to plant them underground anyway, why not just put a tree seed inside of them so they can grow into a tree after you're done?
Now that was a great
Brilliant.
idea.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And it's actually an
Wow.
apple tree, right?
Yes, yeah. So, I was going over what kind of seed I want to put in there, and one thing that kept hitting me, I was like, man, I've always loved the story of Johnny Appleseed, which, is actually
Uh,
John Chapman. And he went all around the northern US and Canada planting apple trees everywhere. And I was like, man, if,
Yeah.
enough people buy my shoes, I'll be just like Johnny Appleseed. We'll be planting apple trees everywhere. That's awesome. So
I
I
love
wanted to do a
that.
nod to him. That's why I called. Actually, if you check the logo, that's his signature that I just grabbed and then turned it into
Okay.
John Nee at the end.
Oh, cool. Inspired of
Oh.
Johnny
I love
Appleseed.
that. Love that.
I love that.
So, so not only do the shoes give you the ability to
Brilliant.
plant the shoe, but the company Johnny, will also plant a tree for every shoe sold. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, we're in this together. Number
What?
one, like I appreciate that you're willing to go out of your way and buy a product that's actually more beneficial for the environment. And so we had to do our part too and say, we realize that not everybody has access to a backyard. I live in Toronto. We got skyscrapers everywhere, and like we just don't have the space to plant our shoes. But it's still okay. Like you can still throw them away. They'll biodegrade in a landfill, but we still want to offset your carbon footprint and create more oxygen. So we'll plant a
Yeah.
tree for every pair sold.
All right.
Love that.
Robbie, did you have a question?
That's Luke. Thank you for blowing my mind. This is such
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful thing. Now, I'm very curious. At what point in your development did you decide, as a person, that you were going green?
It's where I'm fortunate is that I have the experience with shoe design, development, sales, marketing. But like personally, I've always tried to do what I can to reduce, reuse, recycle. But the more that you hear about it, is that it's really important for industries to change their practices even more so than users. So even though like it's great that we're doing this, I really want to push the industry towards something better. And luckily, like Johnny kind of sits at the intersection of those two passions. So I was able to kind of launch it out of that.
No. Lizzie.
So, first question for you. Have you heard of the artist, musician Erica Badu?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So Erica Badu has a song off of her first album called Apple Tree.
Yep.
So that might be a good connection for you when you start your marketing for
So,
this product.
Collab.
so
It
Lizzie,
was,
you got the connect
yeah.
form. You got the connect. You got her on
I mean,
speed
I
dial,
don't
right?
really mess with Erica like that, but we could put the word out, to help look out and try to get a collaboration because it was a very popular song. And I think it
Mhm.
would be catchy for like a jingle, to help grow the business, to get the word out there about this Johnny shoe. My second question was
Yeah.
going to be how you came up with the name. So you just answered that. But going back to actually planting the shoe, how long does it take for the apple tree to grow? Once it's
Great.
planted in the ground, how long does that process take?
So the outsole itself will be biodegraded within about a year and a half, so 18 months.
Okay. Okay.
And we expect that at that point, the tree seed is going to start emerging and it's going to be coated in a fertilizer coating that'll kind of help give it a little kickstart. So we're hoping that you're going to see a tree start germinating within about 2 years or so. 2 years
Wow.
up to 3 years, but it all depends, right? I mean, number one, it depends which environment you planted it in, where you live. Like, there's a lot of variables, so it's kind of hard to say. Um, but the other thing too, and I do want to mention this, is that in nature, not all seeds germinate, and that's just
Mhm.
something that we can't avoid. We can't
Yeah.
help it.
Yeah. Of course.
But let's
Of
say that
course.
you plant your shoes and it doesn't grow into a tree. Just send me an email on the website, and then I'll send you a generous batch of seeds so that you can at least plant them in the
Oh,
ground and
that's
get your apple tree at
awesome.
the end
Okay.
anyway.
That's
So last
great.
quick question. Last quick question because my mom is from the South. We make a lot of fried apples here. What kind of apples? Are
That's
there a
another good
specific
question.
kind of apples?
Oh,
That is an awesome question, and I'm really happy that you mentioned it. When I plan this, I just costed apple seeds at whatever the price goes for, right?
Okay.
But I actually had an apple farmer who contacted me over the Kickstarter, and he was like, "Hey, man, I want you to know I think what you're doing is great. I bought quite a few pairs, but I think
Oh,
it's really
nice.
important that you plant a variety of apple seeds because
Okay.
if you send out too many of the same, you're going to end up like ruining ecosystems with that same apple tree. So my
Mm,
oh,
suggestion is to
got it.
vary the
interesting.
apple seeds in every shoe, and then that way you end up with a good variety everywhere. So we talked about it for a
Ooh,
while, and I
very
was like, "Hey,
cool.
man, would you want to help me out in educating the public on how to better take care of the apple tree once it grows?" So he and I are going to work on that and like give everybody instructions on how to help out and stuff. So it's I'm just so fortunate that so many people want to be a part of this community and want to help. Like I'm legitimately like just so grateful.
Oh,
Huh.
Gianni
Nice,
Storm.
nice.
Um, I have a couple of questions. Um, First, are the shoes only for adults? And then also, when can we get the shoes? And then also, are you hoping that the Johnny shoe inspires other people, like other maybe shoe brands or other people to collaborate with you for like the environment in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. Okay, so I'll try to tackle them in order.
Okay.
First off, they're only for adults right now. And the reason is I launched with a Kickstarter. So we're all pre ordering for August 2022. Um, and with that Kickstarter, the problem is that it's really hard to anticipate if your child's size is going to change and how much it's going to change
Ah,
between now and then.
of course.
So I just went with
Oh
adults
yeah.
to make it super easy. Um, but in the future, I really want to offer this to kids too, because I think this would be awesome as like a tool to, like work with your kids, be like, hey, we should be environmentally friendly. And that takes
Yeah.
time, And so like growing a tree over 3 years is definitely a cool way to do that with your children, right? Um,
Yes.
so the way to get them right now, though, because the Kickstarter is closed, is to go to our website instead, and you can still pre-order them for August 2022 deliveries. It's just johnnyfootwear.com. And sorry, you had a third question, but it's escaping me right now.
Gianni?
It was, do you hope that the Johnny shoe will inspire other people to do maybe the same thing that you're doing or more environmentally friendly action?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of companies that are actually doing really good things too. And so, a lot of companies are recycling footwear, which I think is awesome. Um, there's a lot of initiatives, but I think the market is trailing given that we have the ability to produce biodegradable shoes,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so I think we just need to have a firmer push. And hopefully with Johnny, it shows that, there is a large, passionate portion of the populace that does want this, and it'll
Yeah.
inspire other companies to push harder.
Every time you
Yeah.
say Johnny, I hear Gianni.
Yeah, I wonder if Gianni's like,
I
oh,
know.
he's talking to me. He's talking to me. Named his shoe after me. What?
There's a ton of comments online. Let me get to those for you. So, Karen Thompson says, "Catchy name." Jose said Jose. Jose said,
Oh,
I need a pair." Um, so clever, Johnny Appleseed. Uh,
I
Daria
know.
Daria
That
Winter
is
says,
clever.
"Ideas for entrepreneurship owe much to the isolation during the pandemic. When did you come up with the idea? Uh, and time? Oh, yeah. So when did you come up with the idea? Was it part of the pandemic?
I was actually before, and I
Before.
was gonna launch around I think March 2022 was my original, or sorry, March 2020 was my original timeline.
Mm.
But unfortunately,
ooh,
because of the
Mm.
pandemic, so the pandemic
shutdown
closed everything
time.
down.
Yep.
And
Yes.
the two factories I was going to work with, one of them got repossessed to do PPE by the Chinese
Mm.
government, and the other one just said, "Hey, I'm only working with major brands right now because everything's too crazy." So
Wow.
that actually slowed me down by almost a year, where I had to like find new ethical factories that pay fair wages and all that good stuff, because everybody was kind of in a state of panic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud that we're here now. So that's all that really
Yes.
matters at the end of the day.
All right.
Yeah.
And Jacqueline Robinson says, "We noticed that the Earth, particularly the ocean, self-corrected during the height of the pandemic last year. The waters were so clean that we could actually see the fish, particularly in regions where the
Mhm.
cruise ships. I love your idea." Um, and you got a big heart from Daria Winter as well. So,
Oh.
Aw,
Oh,
now,
thank you so
hey,
much.
Mhm.
Daria.
unfortunately, this is all the time we have for you. Were there any last thoughts that you wanted to share or any shout outs? Robbie, you want to say something?
One quick question for Luke. What is your price point for these shoes?
Yes, good
Oh
question.
yeah.
That's a good
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 question.
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 Um, so we're selling them for 135 Canadian or 108 USD. with free
Nice.
shipping
Good.
included anywhere in North America.
Good.
Good.
Nice.
Luke, I was going to tell you, go high or go home. Go high. People pay for shoes. They have no problem paying high prices for shoes. So, and I'm a
Exactly.
shoe girl. I
especially
have over
sustainable
200 pair
shoes.
of shoes, and I pay
Especially
a lot
sustainable.
of money. So for something like this, it's worth charging. So yes, good
Hmm.
for you.
Yep.
Good for
So,
you.
any last thoughts?
Worth
Any
it.
shout outs
Appreciate
that you
that.
want to?
I just want to tell everybody, like, number one, thank you for paying attention to this cause. I really appreciate it. And if there's one like takeaway that I could leave with you is you can vote with your wallet. So do a lot of research into companies
Ooh,
that
I
have
like
the same
that.
values as you, and just try to support them because people will pay attention at the end of the day as long as those companies that you're supporting that have those same values are doing well.
Look, that's a slogan. You
Amazing.
can vote with your wallet. I like that. I like
Yes.
that.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Luke, for joining us. We do appreciate you. We'll have to have you back to see how
Thank you.
things go.
Thank you.
And we
Yes.
wish you the
Yes.
best.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
me. Really appreciate
Pleasure.
it, guys.
Thank you, Liv.
Thank you, Luke. Ah, he's
I'm
amazing.
getting
I
a
gotta
pair.
send
I
him.
love that.
I gotta send him a copy or a link to Erica Badu's song. We gotta make that work, man. We gotta make that
You
work.
too.
Gotta
Just,
make that work.
I'm sorry. Get your Rolodex out. I don't know if anybody knows what a Rolodex is anymore. Get your Rolodex out.
Oh, what is that?
I know you. I know you
What
gotta
is that?
expose
Oh, Johnny.
That was a
No.
joke, Johnny, right? That was a joke, right? That was a joke, right?
He said Rolodex.
She
He
doesn't
said
know.
Yeah.
She
Rolodex.
literally doesn't know
I don't know what
Rolodex.
that is.
That's
So it's
awesome.
Oh my
index
God, I gotta
cards
look
that you
that
can roll. You set that on your, so it was a
With telephone
Rolodex.
No,
You'd be
it's
numbers.
not.
basically
Don't listen to
spinning
that.
index cards.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing. I didn't know that was the name,
That was
but I've
before
seen
we
those
actually had
before.
memory and phones that could keep numbers for you.
That's so funny.
Bless her little heart. Oh, bless her
Johnny.
heart.
Oh my God.
All right.